He says, it's done. And then she says, I want you to invite Haman, your servant, your most trusted official, and let him be a part of this banquet. And the banquet goes on, and during the banquet, the king says again to Esther, what is it? Anything you want, to half the kingdom, it's yours. And she says yet again, King, if it pleases you, I want you to have another banquet tomorrow night. And again, I want Haman there. In your honor, I want to have this banquet. Haman goes out and he goes home and he's bragging to his family, but he sees Mordecai in the city, and Mordecai refuses to bow to him again. Haman is furious, and he goes to his wife, and she says, build a gallows 75 feet high and hang him. Make an example out of him. And Haman says, you're right. I'm not going to let this man take up any space in my mind. I'm celebrating because Queen Esther has invited me, nobody else but me, into the inner circle and has a party in my honor, in the king's honor. That night, Xerxes is laying in bed, and he's having a hard time falling asleep. So he decides to kick back, and he summons his officials to come, and he said, I want you to read the chronicles of my life. Let me put it to you in simple terms. This would be like, men, if you were laying in your bed next to your wife, and you said, honey, I can't sleep. I want you to tell me all the reasons why I'm great. Go ahead. Yes? All right, yeah, keep going. That's literally what's going on. He's having his life reread to him. And as these chronicles are being read, he learns that the man who had saved him from assassination was never honored. And he's disturbed by this. And so he decides that in the morning when he wakes up, he's gonna honor this man, Mordecai, for saving his life. Haman comes in the next morning, and he's outside the front gates in the king's entryway, and the king says, who's out front? And they said, Haman. He said, well, bring him in. I want to get his ideas on this. I trust him. So Haman comes in, and the king says, what should be done for the man that the king wants to honor most? Haman, thinking obviously he's talking about me, says, well, you should put him on one of your royal horses. You should give him one of your royal robes that you've worn, give him your signet ring, put a crown on his head, and have one of your trusted officials take him through the city so everybody can see him and declare, this is what happens to the man that the king wants to honor most. King says, great idea, Haman. Go get Mordecai and you take him. Haman hates Mordecai and had just come to the king's presence to ask him to hang Mordecai. He's going to hang with him, all right. On the bottom, as he's taking Mordecai through the city, this is what happens when you don't shut your mouth. That night, the banquet happens. Haman's there, and king says, what is it you want, Esther? Up to half the kingdom, it's yours. She said, I want that you would save my life and my people. Xerxes says, Esther, what do you mean? Who's trying to kill you? What's gone on? And she looks over. Can you just feel the heartbeat of Haman? And she says, your servant Haman is trying to kill me and my people. The king gets so upset that he literally knocks his wine over. He gets up and he throws everything from the banquet and he walks outside. He had gone through some anger management because he walks to the garden by himself and he counts to 10. The 10 part's not in there. The rest is. He goes out there and he's trying to collect his thoughts. Haman, knowing that he's in trouble, decides, I got to beg for my life to Queen Vashti. Vashti, who was reclined at the table, Haman throws himself upon her, says, Vashti, save me. Don't let him kill me. Xerxes comes in and he sees that Haman is all over his wife. And he says, it's not enough that you try to kill her, but now you're going to molest my wife? The same gallows that he had created for Mordecai to be hung with is where he spent his last minutes on earth. And Mordecai came into the inner gates, and he was honored. And Esther and Mordecai pleaded with Xerxes and said, please, issue another decree from you that will go out to all 127 provinces, and you save my people. If Esther and Mordecai had not dared to dream, had not dared to imagine what God could do in and through them, their people would have been annihilated. But because they were willing to think outside the box and take risks, God use them to change the world? I want to leave you with three things today. First of all, world changers are imaginers. World changers are people who don't see things for the way that they are right now, but they see things for what they could be, for the potential that they have. If we want to change the world right here at Illumination Church, we cannot look around and see things for the way that they are right now. We have to be able to look and investigate and examine how God could use us to change the world one life at a time, one empty seat at a time, how his word could go out and change lives. World changers are imaginers. Think about it. Walt Disney, how creative must he have been? Thomas Edison, how creative must he have been? These people, these individuals were imaginers. When was the last time you asked God, fill my mind with imagination? Lord, take me to places that I otherwise wouldn't go on my own. Allow me to dream dreams and have visions and to imagine what it is you could do in and through me. If I were to surrender all that I have to you, if I were to become solely obedient to you, if I were to live my life for you, if I were to honor and trust and respect you, Lord, if I were to take some serious risks, God, what could you do through me? This morning, I want you, before you leave, to commit and ask God to help you become an imaginer. Because as a church, as a staff, as a body, we're dreaming together. We're imagining what God can do through us. Next week, I'm going to tell you about some events coming up that are going to be pretty awesome. Some things that are outside the box. And we're trusting that God's going to do great things through them. The second thing that world changers are risk takers. Do you know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results? If we want to change the world, if you want to be a world changer, you've got to be willing to take risks. Again, three types of churches: undertaking churches, caretaking churches, and risk-taking churches. We want to be a risk-taking church. I want to be a risk taker for God. I want to move outside of my comfort zone. I want to ask God to provide in ways that are unforeseen, beyond my imagination. Before you leave today, commit to asking God to make you a risk taker. Take some financial risks to help grow the kingdom of God. Take some of your time and risk it on growing God's kingdom. Risk going outside of your comfort zone to talk to your neighbor. Maybe you don't like your neighbor. Maybe they did something that just completely upsets you. Maybe you don't know your neighbor. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that family member. There's somebody this week that you need to take a risk on. Invite them to church next week. I promise you're not going to want to miss it. I promise. You're not going to want to miss this series. And I also want to encourage you guys to get here before 10 o'clock and get inside. Because we start at 10 o'clock, and it's usually about 10:15. I look back, and there's about 5 people. So I just want to encourage you guys to recreate that culture and get here a little bit earlier. We're going to start bringing the donuts and coffee right up front. So when you're late, we're going to say, oh, yeah, 2 donuts, not 3, buddy. Put one back. Be a risk taker this week. Invite somebody from work to come to your church. Take the bulletin that you were given. Show it to them. Use that as your invitation. Take them to our website. We're making updates every week now. Take them to our Facebook page. Just encourage. Invite them to your house and let them watch how you live your life. They should be able to see the difference that God has made in your life and want to be a part of that. The Bible calls that fruit. World changers are risk takers. And finally, world changers are committed to the cause. World changers are committed to the cause. We are committed here at Illumination Church to love God, to love people, and to light the world. The Bible calls the church the bride of Christ. And so in wedding terms, I want to tell you that we're committed for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad. We are committed to the cause of Christ at Illumination Church. If you want to be a world changer, you've got to be committed to the cause. Can you imagine if Esther and Mordecai had tried to go it alone and they weren't those 3 things? If they weren't willing to imagine what God could do, if they weren't willing to take some risks, and if they weren't committed to their cause, I may not be here right now talking to you. But God took 2 common people, hardly royalty, and because they were willing to imagine how things could be, not as they were, but what they could be, because they were willing to take risks, and because they were committed to the cause, God changed the face of that nation and our world forever. Friends, what can God do through you if you're willing to surrender your life to him? If you're willing to imagine God dreaming, if you're willing to take risks, and if you're willing to stay committed to the cause, what could God do in your life? What could God do in mine? And what will God do at Illumination Church and in Prior Lake, Savage, Burnsville, Shakopee, Scott County, our nation and our world? It starts with you.